You may recall that this is all in the providence of God. By the way, what does the word providence mean? What's it? I'm not looking for a dictionary word necessarily, but what do you think providence means? Okay, if we're talking about divine providence, you're talking about God is providing. The inherent in the word providence is to provide. And so God is providing for his people. He is actually preparing for them to go down into Egypt. And you may recall that Joseph, as he has been sold into Egypt, been falsely accused, and now he's interpreted dreams for Pharaoh. He's been brought out, and he has advised Pharaoh what to do. And God said, Pharaoh said, there's no one any wiser than Joseph. And so he put Joseph second command over all of Egypt. And so, you may or may not remember, but he's been in Egypt now for about 13 years total. And so a long time has passed. He was 17 years old when his brother sold him to go down into Egypt. And so now then, when he stands before Pharaoh, he's going to be 30 years of age. And so a lot of time has passed. And you know, a lot of people change in appearance from age 17 to age 30, right? And also, he is most likely dressed as an Egyptian, not an Israelite. And so they were not expecting to see him, so they do not recognize him. And what did Joseph say to them when he saw that it was his brothers? And he accused them of being what? Spies. Oh, you're spies. You've come down here to spy out the land. By the way, he speaks to them not in the Hebrew language either. He speaks to them through an interpreter. And consequently now they say, oh, no, we're not spies. But, well, then how are you going to prove that you're not spies? Well, he says, I'm going to keep Simeon here in prison, and you go back. You said you have a younger brother. You're going to have to bring him back and prove to us that he's your brother in order for me to let Simeon out and to prove that you're not spies. So he goes back home to Jacob with the food, but also what was put back in their bags? All that money that they had come. Well, they discover when they get back that all their money is there. And they're saying, oh no, we've already been accused of being spies, and now our money is back. And they tell Jacob, we've got to take Benjamin and go back down there. And what does Jacob say? I've already lost one. I've lost his brother. And you remember they said, we have one little brother. Our father is old. We're 10 brethren, and one is not. And I've often thought he said, let me introduce to you not. Because he was not. He was the one that they said was not. But they did not know that at the time. Finally, though, they run out of food. The famine's still on. Jacob says, you have to go back and try to buy more food. Does not want them to take Benjamin, but Judah steps in and says, we promised that we would not come back without Benjamin, and if you will send Benjamin with us, we will go, but if not, we will not go, because all of us will be killed, basically, if we go back down there, is what their thinking was. And so finally Jacob acquiesces and says, go ahead and take him, and if I am bereaved, I am bereaved of all of you. And so he goes back down, or they go back down, and Joseph invites them for a meal. And they're really confused about all of this. Oh, maybe he's trying to find out something against us now. And so he speaks comfortably to them. He asks, is this your brother of whom you spake? Yes. And Joseph had to excuse himself because he started crying because he saw his whole brother. The others were half brothers. And so then he washes his face. He comes back in and he feeds them. But he gave Benjamin 5 times as much food as all the others. And then he's going to send them away. And he gives Benjamin 5 times the amount of clothing that he gives all the others. They didn't question that because they know they're walking on thin ice with Joseph anyway. But now then, what does Joseph say in addition to putting their food, to send them back. What did he put in there separate this time? That silver cup. And whose bag? Put it in the youngest one's bag. Put it in Benjamin's bag. And so they do that, and they get on going on their way. And now Joseph says to his servants, I want you to overtake them and bring back the one who you find that has the silver cup. Right? And so they overtake them, and we find that the brothers say, well, we wouldn't do such a thing as this. He's been good to us. And he said, if you find that cup, that's what they're saying, if you find that cup amongst us, let that man be killed, and the rest of us will be your servants. You know, that wasn't wise. So they said, no, whoever's bag we find the cup in, if we find that, he will go back with us, but the rest of you be set free. So they start at the eldest. They don't find it. They keep going down. Finally, they get down to Benjamin, and they find the cup. Oh, no. So finally, they all go back down, and they meet with Joseph, and they began to plead their case before Joseph. Joseph, of course, says, no, we're going to keep Benjamin. The rest of you can go home, but Benjamin's going to stay down here. I'm wondering at this time if Joseph really just thought, I'll just keep Benjamin. He's my whole brother. The rest of them go back. That could have been in his mind. You'll remember one of Joseph's children was named Manasseh. And what did Manasseh's name mean? Forgetfulness. That is, God has made me to forget my family. I think he's content to be down there now without his family. And so he's ready to send them back. But who makes this special plea? A very tender and heartfelt plea to Joseph. Not Reuben. Judah. Judah. I remember that because our Christ, who pleads for us, comes from the tribe of Judah, or came from the tribe of Judah. And so he says, in essence, if Benjamin does not go back, the old man of whom we spake, he will die. This will kill him. And so Judah says, take me instead, and let Benjamin and the others go. I think we see in them a sincerity now that has not been seen up until this point. And Benjamin is willing to die if the case, I'm sorry, not Benjamin, but Judah is willing to be the scapegoat here, if you will. I'm the one who will suffer, and whatever happens to me, because that's what I've told my dad. And so that's where we are. And we get to this point. Joseph is hearing all of this. And now then, chapter 45. Then Joseph could not refrain himself before all them that stood by him. I think he's moved by Judah's passionate plea. He cried, cause every man to go out from me. And there stood no man with him, while Joseph made himself known unto his brethren. And he wept aloud, and the Egyptians in the house of Pharaoh heard. So you can see this in your mind's eye. They're not in the room with him, but he's crying so loudly that all of the people there could hear him. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I am Joseph. Can you imagine that? I mean, have you ever been so shocked that you just felt like your heart just drops down and you don't even know if you're going to survive? I have an idea. This is what's happening. I am Joseph. Don't you know that they're looking a little bit now more closely? Doth my father yet live? By the way, he'd been speaking to them through the interpreter, but he's not doing that anymore. Now they've also come to realize everything we've said in his presence, he has understood. Oops. And his brethren could not answer him, for they were troubled at his presence. They're just, like Jim said, they're just shocked. I think they're standing there in shock. But notice the great attitude that Joseph has now. And Joseph said unto his brethren, Come near to me, I pray you. And they came near, and he said, I am Joseph, your brother, whom you sold into Egypt. He's reminding them of what happened all those many years earlier. But watch this. Now therefore be not grieved, nor angry with yourselves, that ye sold me hither, for God did send me before you to preserve life. Joseph could see the hand of God in this. What if Joseph had not been down in Egypt? What if he had not been promoted to where he was, and this famine had come? Well, then all of the family might have been wiped out, and they would have lost everything. But so Joseph now can see the hand of God in this. You know, we may be very quick sometimes to want revenge, or we want to pay back. We want justice. We want all of these things. But I think Joseph wants a relationship more than he wants justice. Joseph wants God to be honored more than to get personal revenge against what had happened to him. And look what he had been through. Falsely accused, and also he had been hurt by his brothers. You learn this from the prophets and other places, the pitiful plea that he had to his brethren and before they sold him, and they would not, they actually wanted to kill him, except Reuben stepped in and stopped that. And now then they've sold him. They haven't come after him. They haven't looked for him. And as far as we know, they had never told the father what had happened to him. Matter of fact, at this point, Jacob still thinks he's dead. But Joseph doesn't want revenge. And he says, God sent me here. If we can see things in the overall scheme of things, rather than taking things personally at times, maybe we would do better as the church ourselves. For these 2 years hath the famine been in the land. He says there's 5 more to go. There will neither be earing nor harvest. And God sent me before you to preserve you a posterity in the earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Well, they were still accountable to God for what they had done, of course. But God is also not only making provisions for them, He's molding them. He is shaping their lives. And we have the 12 tribes of Israel that's going to come from these people. It's amazing what God is able to do with our lives if we will be pliable, if you will, in His hands. That we will submit to Him and what God can make of us if we will allow that. So now it was not you that sent me hither, but God, and He hath made me a father to Pharaoh. I tell Pharaoh what he needs to do. Imagine that. 17-year-old boy sold, falsely accused, thrown into prison, and all of these things. And Lord of all his house, and ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. And now then he says, here's what I want you to do. Haste ye, go up to my father, and say unto him, Thus saith the son Joseph, God hath made me Lord of all Egypt. That would be hard to imagine. A world power, basically. Come down now unto me, tarry not. You will dwell in the land of Goshen, and thou shalt be near unto me, thou and thy children, and thy children's children, and thy flocks, and thy herds, and all that thou hast, and I'll take care of you. I will feed you. I will nourish you. For yet there are 5 years of famine, lest thou and thy household and all that thou hast come to poverty. He says, you see with your eyes and the eyes of my brother Benjamin, that is by my mouth that speaketh unto you. I'm speaking directly to you. He didn't send a messenger. You've heard it from my own mouth. I will take care of you. And you shall tell my father of all my glory in Egypt, and all that ye have seen, and ye shall haste and bring down my father hither. He's not saying this in a proud way. He's not saying, when he says, you see my glory in Egypt, he's not saying, look how great I am. He's saying, look what God has done. And you see that I'm capable of taking care of you. So I want you to go home, get all of your things, and come back. In fact, Pharaoh's going to tell them a little bit differently than that. He's going to say, tell them just leave everything. You just come, and we'll provide everything you need. Of course, they don't do that. But he especially then has a tender reunion with Benjamin. And I don't know how old Benjamin would have been when Joseph was 17. I don't know how old Benjamin was. But what a reunion for him to see Benjamin. And he wept upon, and he fell upon Benjamin's neck and wept, and Benjamin wept upon his neck. So he kissed all of his brethren and wept with them. And after that, his brethren talked with him. Finally, they muster up enough courage to talk with him. Wouldn't you like to have been a fly on the wall? Are we just joking? No, that's probably not it. That wouldn't have worked. Maybe some repentance on their part. But there's another matter that they're going to have to do now, and we're never told this. How do they explain this to Jacob? When they say Joseph is alive, how are they going to say, look what we did? You know, we sold him 13 years ago. You'd have thought that might have come up somewhere in the conversation, right? Because all this time, so they've been rather cruel. Not only to Joseph, but they saw their dad, Jacob, mourning over his son, really believing that he had died, and he had the, quote, evidence that he was dead, the coat of many colors, with the blood of the kid upon it. Well, the fame thereof was heard in Pharaoh's house, saying, Joseph's brethren are come, and it pleased Pharaoh well and his servants. God has given Joseph great favor then in the eyes of Pharaoh. And basically whatever is good for Joseph is good for Pharaoh because he's prospering. So Pharaoh steps in and intervenes in this, and he says, say unto thy brethren, this do you laid your beast, and go, get you into the land of Canaan, and take your father and your household, and come unto me, and I will give you the good of the land of Egypt, and you shall eat the fat of the land. So we're down in Egypt, and if in your mind's eye you can see just going up a little bit up into Canaan, that's where Jacob is. And they're going to then come down into Egypt, and specifically to the land of Canaan. I'm sorry, the Goshen, which, by the way, we're going to learn a little bit later on, is also known as Ramesses, will become Ramesses. We learned that in Exodus 1:11, that's when they actually build these cities of, in order to store cities, storehouses in these cities, rather, grain bins, we would call them, in order to store the grain, and they named it Ramesses. But here, it's in Goshen. That Goshen is going to become that. Right.
They stayed long enough for all the food to be gone.
Right.
But yet Joseph now sends them back.
Jacob sends them back.
No, Joseph sends them back to get their father.
Oh, yes.
With, again, food and everything. How does he know?
Well, I think does he keep Benjamin down there this time? I'm not sure. Well, maybe it doesn't tell us. But I think they're going to come back because otherwise they will die.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it was like they didn't seem in a hurry to get back to Simeon.
Right. Oh, Simeon, he may want some explanation too. Were you just going to let me stay down here? Why didn't you come right back? Right. Yeah, I think they have an incentive to come back because Joseph is there. He has basically forgiven us. We're going to be up here, or we're down. Yeah, we're going to be up here in Canaan, hungry and in poverty. or else we can go back there and be about our business and prosper. So I think that they will come back. Pharaoh continues in verse 19. Now thou art commanded this, do you? You take your wagons out of the land of Egypt for your little ones and for your wives, and bring your father and come. So load them up in the wagon so that they don't have to walk. And so regard not your stuff, that is, when you get there. For the good of all the land of Egypt is yours. Pharaoh's going to get really rich before all of this is over, because he's selling. We get into this in the next few chapters. He's selling grain for money. Then all their money gets gone. And then he buys their cattle. All their cattle is gone. They come back and say, all we have left is our land and ourselves. And he then says, okay, I'll take your land. It will become Pharaoh's. And I will take you as laborers, not slaves. But 1/5 of everything that you produce on that land becomes Pharaoh's. So 20% of everything. You know, in our country, we had sharecroppers at times. So now, you see, it's not a master and slave situation, because they would have taken more than 20%. We give basically 20% to our government, do we not? At least, in taxes and things. And matter of fact, that's going to please them well. But what I'm saying is, there's plenty in the household of Pharaoh because of everything that Pharaoh is getting. And so the government is providing for the people on this particular occasion, keeping them from starving. It's not a tyranny or anything like this, but he's trying to keep the people alive, and this is the way that Joseph says to do that. So that's yet to come. But what I'm saying is, he will have the provisions in order to take care of the 70 people that are going to come down. By the way, how many people are going to come down? I just mentioned total. How many are there when they leave? 603,000. 603,550 of the age of 20 and above, not counting then their wives, nor the Levites and their children. So it could have been 2 million people, 1.5 million or whatever, out of 70 that are down there. So they're multiplying. Of course, there's going to come up another Pharaoh that we'll talk about maybe a little bit later on. But at this point in time, by the way, to all them he gave every man changes of raiment, but to Benjamin he gave 300 pieces of silver and 5 changes of raiment. I don't think they're going to complain. They're just grateful that they are not being cast in prison or made slaves themselves. And to his father he sent after this manner: 10 asses laden with good things of Egypt, 10 she-asses laden with corn and bread and meat for his father by the way. In other words, on the journey, when you're coming back, you're going to need food. He sent his brethren away. Maybe all of them went, Michelle. I hadn't thought about that. Maybe Benjamin goes back with them too. And they departed, and he said unto them, see that ye fall not out by the way. In other words, don't let anything happen to you. Be careful. Don't get sidetracked. Go do what you need to do. So they went up out of Egypt and came into the land of Canaan unto Jacob their father. Verse 26, I think, is significant to me, because I would just wonder how that they're going to. I think Jacob just would have to have a lot of questions. And told him, saying, Joseph is yet alive, and he is governor over all the land of Egypt. And Jacob's heart fainted, for he believed them not. This can't be true. You believed so strongly for 13 years that your son is dead, but now somebody brings news that he's not. That'd be hard to believe. So how do they convince him that Joseph is still alive? All the evidence they've got there with them. For notice, they told him all the words of Joseph, which he said unto them. And when he saw the wagons, there's the evidence, which Joseph had sent to carry him, the spirit of Jacob their father revived. He could no longer deny this. In other words, you've brought all of this up from Egypt. I know Joseph what you're telling me must be true. So now then his spirit is revived within him. And so he's looking forward to this now, to going down into Egypt himself. And so Israel says, it is enough. Joseph, my son, is yet alive, and I will go and see him before I die. So his spirit is revived. He's ready to go down into Egypt. And so he takes his journey, chapter 46. All that he had, he comes to Beersheba. Where's Beersheba located? Okay, what's up north is what? Dan. What's way down south? That's Beersheba. So they come to Beersheba. Beersheba is significant. You may recall Abraham, when Hagar went out, she came to Beersheba. You see, now where was she headed? From up around Hebron and Bethel and the places where they'd been. She was headed to Egypt, fleeing Sarah. And she came to Beersheba. And that well of oath that is there, God will provide for her. And there he offers a sacrifice unto the God of his father Isaac. Doesn't this remind you of Abraham? That wherever he traveled, he worshiped. He built an altar. We see that in Isaac as well. We also now see it in Jacob. And so they have this great heritage there. And God spake unto Israel in the visions of the night and said, Jacob, Jacob. And he said, here am I. So God is going to give him the reassurance also. And he said, I am God, the God of thy father. Fear not to go down into Egypt, for I will there make of thee a great nation. Indeed, God will. As I mentioned, going from 70 up into near over 1 million people, God says, I will go down with thee into Egypt. So he's giving Jacob this great assurance. The Lord's promised to be with us too if we do his will, hasn't he? Let your conversation be without covetousness. Be content with such things as you have. For he has said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee, so that we may boldly say, the Lord is my helper. I will not fear what man shall do unto me. Hebrews 13, verses 5 and 6. Jesus said as we carry out the Great Commission, lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the world. So here God, though, gives him that assurance. So he rises up from Beersheba, the sons of Israel, and they carry Jacob their father, their little ones, their wives, in the wagons which Pharaoh had sent to carry him. They carry their cattle, by the way. They don't just leave them up there like they've been told to do. Their goods that they had gotten in the land of Canaan. They come to Egypt, Jacob and all of his seed with him. His sons with him, his daughters, and his sons' daughters, and all his seed brought he. In other words, he's bringing all of them. Now we have it listed here. These are the names of the children of Israel. We're not going to read them all, but he lists Jacob and his sons, Reuben, which is Jacob's firstborn. You'll recall Reuben has lost the birthright. 1 Chronicles 5 and verse number 1. We've already read that. And then you have the sons of Simeon, verse 10. You have the sons of Levi. By the way, you have Gershom, Kohath, and Merari here, who they will be working among the tabernacle, right? Later on when you study the book of Exodus. Then you have the sons of Judah, and Onan and Shelah. But and Onan die, you remember, in the land of Canaan. We read about that. But then you have Pharez. And what is significant about Pharez? I'm sorry? No. You remember that David in Ruth chapter 4, in the last few verses of Ruth chapter 4, you have the genealogy of David given, and it starts with Pharez and comes down to David. and he is the 10th generation. And what's the significance of David being the 10th generation? You remember Pharez was illegitimate, right? And it says that an illegitimate child shall not enter into the congregation until what? The 10th generation. David was that 10th generation from Pharez. That may be why David said, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Because from all those generations previously, none could. That may also explain Psalm 51, verse 5. In sin did my mother conceive me. In other words, he's saying sin's been around my family forever, possibly. But anyway, that's Pharez. By the way, Christ will come from that also, way on down the line, Matthew chapter 1, because he's a descendant of David. And the son, that is, fleshly speaking. And the sons of Pharez are mentioned also. Then you have the sons of Issachar. Then you have the sons of Zebulun. Then you have the sons of Leah. And also mentioned Dinah there. The sons of Gad, verse 16. The sons of Asher. Then the sons of Zilpah, whom Laban bare or gave to Leah his daughter. You have the sons of Rachel, Jacob's wife, which are Joseph and Benjamin. Then you have unto Joseph in the land of Egypt were born Manasseh and Ephraim. What does Ephraim mean? Fruitful. Fruitful. And the sons of Benjamin. So later on, he's marrying, going to have children then. And maybe he already is. But we're giving a history of all these. These are all the sons of Rachel, which were born to Jacob. By the way, who came from the tribe of Benjamin that we know of? Who do we know that came from the tribe of Benjamin? Paul did. What king of Israel? Saul. Interestingly, Saul and Saul. You wonder if there's a connection with the Benjamins, if naming their children Saul. So you have Saul. Also, the Benjamites were known for being left-handed and pretty accurate with slinging a slingshot, weren't they? And so you had the Benjamites. You have, and the tribes, you have Judah, and then right below Judah, you have the little tribe of Benjamin, don't you? So Judah and Benjamin there together. And by the way, we're not going to get into that anytime soon, but in the book of Numbers, when the numbering of the people and of all of the tribes and how many's in each tribe, and they go around, they circle around as on each side of the tabernacle, and that's the way that they were to travel. I measured it one time just in miles as it relates to what this encampment would have been, and it would have been like stretching from Senatobia to Independence as far as the ground that they would have covered just once they got set up. Now, can you imagine moving them? That would be a mass movement, wouldn't it? Would it not? Because how many people are in Memphis? It's about 1 million people. Can you imagine that many and more all moving at the same time then? So that'd be a group of people. That's the Israelites then, as they will be moved, starting from 70 people. And so what God was able to do with 70 people that we're reading about. Now we're jumping on ahead. And verse 27, it says, all that came down were 70. And then he sends Judah before him unto Joseph to direct his face unto Goshen. And they came into the land of Goshen. Goshen is not a large land per se. And I think that's why when God says to them that I'm going to bring you up out of this Egyptian captivity to a large land flowing with milk and honey, Canaan is not really a real large land as we think of it, but it's a large land in comparison to Goshen. as to where they were. And Goshen is going to become significant also because when you start reading in the book of Exodus and all these plagues that he's bringing up, they didn't happen in Goshen, did they? So living in Goshen was a good place to live, but that's because that's where God's people were. So Joseph made ready his chariot, and he went up to meet Israel, his father, to Goshen, and presented himself unto him. Note this, and he fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. Finally, Jacob and Joseph are reunited after all of this time. Like I said, it'd been, when he stood before Pharaoh, he was 30. Now then, there's been 5 years of plenty, 35 now, and then 2 years into the famine, 37. So about 37 years of age. He was 17 when he left home. Well, that's a long time to be away from home. I'm sorry? Yes. Oh, yes, all strength. But God was with him, right? And that's what matters. And Israel said unto Joseph, now let me die since I've seen thy face. In other words, what more could I ask for? There's nothing any greater. And if I die now, I am a fulfilled man. That's what he's saying. Because thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and to his father's house, I will go up and show Pharaoh, and say unto him, my brethren and my father's house, which were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me. And the men are shepherds, for their trade has been to feed cattle. And they have brought their flocks and their herds and all that they have. And what he's telling them is that when you are called up to go before Pharaoh, I want you to say that you are shepherds. And you're going to dwell separate from the Egyptians because shepherds were an abomination to the Egyptians. So they're going to be a separated people. But Pharaoh, he's going to be so favorable to Joseph and to his family. He tells them, since your family are shepherds, if any of them know how to raise cattle, put them over my cattle. That's how much confidence Pharaoh has in Joseph. That if your family, and so now then they've got something to do. They've got all their flocks and herds to take care of, but also they're going to be taking care of Pharaoh's as him. And he says, and it shall come to pass when Pharaoh shall call you and shall say, what is your occupation? That ye shall say, thy servant's trade has been about cattle from our youth, even until now, both we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen, for every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. Unclean, I guess in some ways they would say, according to their belief system. We'll stop there because it's about time for the bell, and we'll pick up, I guess, next Wednesday night with chapter 47, and we're getting close to the end of this book. And it's a great account here, isn't it?